Okay, good evening, everybody. Can we hear me okay? We're going to go ahead and call this meeting please to order. I do have 6:01. Welcome. This is City of Linden Caucus Meeting for November 17th. I'm going to go over, if you did sign in on your sign-in sheet out front, the small print at the top, I'm going to go ahead and just read that over to remind everybody how we're going to act here in the meeting. Can you hear me now? All right. The City of Linden may allow the public comment at city council meetings. Kentucky law states that allowing the public to comment at city meetings can be conditioned upon appropriate, non-disruptive behavior from those wishing to address the city council. No vulgar language, threatening, or disruptive behavior will be tolerated, and the city reserves the right to remove any person causing unreasonable disruption in the city meeting. This is an opportunity to address comments to the council, not to engage in a question and answer session. As the chair of the meeting, I will call upon those wishing to speak at the appropriate time in the meeting from the sign-in sheet, and you must limit your comments to no longer than 3 minutes. Okay, that's what we sign. If you put your name on the sign-in sheet out there and you do wish to speak, we'll end up calling your name from that sheet at some point during this meeting. With that being said, I want to turn it over to Mr. Singler then so he can kind of give you an idea of what's going to happen here.
Good evening. My name's John Singler. I'm the attorney for the city. We're going to have a discussion about the zoning case today. We're going to first call on the attorneys that are involved both for the project and also in opposition. We're going to give them 10 to 15 minutes to summarize the record below, both in support of the application and then also in opposition to the application. We are not conducting a new public hearing. The record is the record. There were many, many witnesses on both sides at the public hearing, 270 pages worth of documents and testimony and information. So we're not taking new evidence. We are listening to both sides of this to summarize what they presented at the Planning Commission. No votes are taken here tonight. This is the caucus meeting. Caucus meeting is to decide what goes on the agenda for the regular meeting, which is next Monday. So with that, we can go ahead and start with the attorneys. Attorney for the applicant first.
Attorney for the applicant is Cliff Ashburn. Yes, sir. That microphone should be working this week.
Okay.
Let us know. Yeah.
I just want to make sure we have more than 3 minutes.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Good. Thank you, members of the council. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. You may notice some signs out there. I think those are provided by the city of Belmead. That's my understanding. Just want to put that on the record real quick. My name is Cliff Ashburn. I'm with Dinsmore & Scholl. I'm here on behalf of the university, the foundation, and LeafSpring, who is proposing to build a daycare center in your community. As was heard at the Planning Commission, there was okay.
Should be good, right?
Well, not the people behind. I don't think.
Can you all hear okay? Can everybody hear him okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll turn it up, but we have to.
We presented a significant amount of evidence, obviously, at the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission voted to recommend approval to this body, and that was after multiple hours of hearings. That was after multiple meetings of the commission and the commission's committees. So I think I want to just start with that. So far, everybody who's looked at this case, the staff, the Planning Commission, has said, yes, this is the right location, this is the right use, and this is the right design. I'm going to hit some highlights for you tonight. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I provided all of you kind of a truncated version of the slide deck that we presented to the Planning Commission. All of the slides that you have there are the same slides. There are just fewer of them than I went over with the full commission. So LeafSpring, a couple of things about LeafSpring that will be relevant later when I talk about traffic. One, LeafSpring provides two kind of differentiators, if you will. I think there are lots of ways in which it's a little bit different, but there are two key points. One is there's a significant amount of common space within the building, which means that as you look at how many students are in the space, it is fewer than you might find in another daycare center. So daycare centers typically have a set amount of square footage per student. LeafSpring uses more square feet per student. The other is the inclusion of what's called the Get Well Place. The Get Well Place is a nurse-staffed section of the facility that allows kids with mild illness to remain in daycare as opposed to asking mom or dad to come away from work to come pick them up. Those are real differentiators from a standard daycare. Now, and this is the floor plan so you can see that additional space. The issues that really came up, and I'll touch on this, subject property, I think we're all familiar with that. These are the surrounding road classifications. One thing I just want to point out here, Whips Mill Road is a collector road, so it is the sort of place where you would typically find more intense uses than just single-family residential, although there are many residences that line Westport as you go west from the site. So when it comes to the use itself and the design, if you look here, section 4.2.19 of Linden's ordinances lists several things that need to be included in the design. We presented again this to the Planning Commission. With regard to the items that you see listed, C, I, and J are not applicable to this. And on every other requirement that's listed in, and this is, just so you understand, 4.2.19 is the section of your code that deals with the conditional use of a daycare center. So the site design and the other aspects of this development are compliant with your ordinances. Outside of Linden and outside of some of the other suburban cities, Louisville Metro actually about 4 or 5 years ago adopted changes that allowed child care centers to be located in more places. And if this site is bisected by, there's a little chunk of it that's Belmead, and there's the large portion, the vast majority of it is Linden. If this were entirely in Belmead, this would be a permitted use, like permitted by right. So I bring that to your attention just to say that as people have looked more recently at where child care centers could be or should be located, the determination of those groups has been it should be located in more places, including places just like the subject property. Now, this is I mentioned before, it's the right use, it's the right site, it's the right design. This was the previous site plan, the first site plan that we showed to the neighborhood. And a couple of aspects on this site plan have changed, and I'll get to exactly what changed before, or in just a moment. We had surface stormwater, which means more of the site is being disturbed. Okay. More of the site is being disturbed. The access point on Old Whips Mill was further down Old Whips Mill, meaning that it was in the middle of the block. And the parking layout didn't flow quite as well as it ultimately did. This plan disturbed more trees than the plan we're going to show you that was finally recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. And as I said, had access points located in different areas. This was the proposed plan, and these are the changes that have been made since filing. So we eliminated the zone change in Belmead because we didn't need it, because in Belmead this is a permitted use. We had the basin outlet drain directly to the stream. That was through collaboration with MSD. That was their request. The dumpster size and location changed to be less obtrusive. The access point to Old Whips Mill moved closer to New Whips Mill so as to provide less disturbance. a barrier was incorporated within the parking area so that the area that's accessed off of Old Whips Mill is really the staff parking, which means that there will be some people that come there and leave, but just like an office, they're going to come once and leave once, as opposed to the flow during the morning and the evening for students. All that's going to occur off of Whips Mill. We modified the front parking, we modified the entrance, we did all of those things to improve the design based on comments we heard from the neighborhood and from the staff. This just shows the landscape buffer areas. They're significant. There's also some significant grade changes that will occur. You may hear later about the curve in Whips Mill Road. We have a site analysis that I'll show you in just a moment. But one thing to note is that this site will be graded down. Currently, to the extent that there are issues with seeing around that curve, it's largely based on the elevation of the land. And as you can see on the screen here, the red line is where the current grade is, and that will be graded down, which will provide greater visibility. This is the site distance compliance. As you can see, we exceed normal site distance requirements from both the North Whittington Parkway intersection and the Old Whips Mill and Whips Mill intersections. This was the redesign of the entrance. We conducted a traffic study. The traffic study, as I mentioned, was based on the trips that we would anticipate being generated from a daycare center of this size. And as I mentioned before, a daycare center of this size in most instances has many more children in it. LeafSpring has fewer, so that becomes somewhat of a safety factor. In addition, Whips Mill, traffic on Whips Mill, I know this is counterintuitive to lots of people in the room, but actually measuring the traffic over a period of time, the traffic on Whips Mill has reduced over time, the average daily trips. You know?
All right, folks. Hold on, folks. Thank you. Folks, let's let the man speak, please.
Which is another safety factor. That led to the striping of a left turn lane in to the subject property, which is the recommendation and which is included on the plan. Now, another concern that came up at the public hearing that we would like to address is flooding in the area.
Yes.
There is, I would venture to say, no entity aside from perhaps MSD that has done as much as the foundation and the university have in cooperation with others to address flooding on this section of Beargrass Creek. The regional detention basin is on land that the university allowed to be improved so that the regional detention basin can be put in place. And I can say tonight that the university and the foundation will be happy to partner with MSD, partner with Linden, partner with any other party who would like to engage in ways to further improve flooding issues in this area. The fact of the matter is this is a 16,000 acre watershed, and this is a 2.5 acre site. So there is a limit to what really can be done on this site. And one of the things that can be done on the site is to detain water beyond the requirement. We provided this to the Planning Commission. In 2022, MSD did a watershed protection plan. In that action plan, it states that people should comply with the typical stormwater retention requirements, and that if necessary, they would pay a regional fee. When this application was reviewed by MSD before being allowed to proceed through the Planning Commission process, the request was made that this site provide detention at 1.5 times the normal size. And that is incorporated in the plan. And it's incorporated in the plan in the form of underground detention, meaning that there will be less disturbance, less incursion to the north side of the site that may impact trees or may impact the floodplain. That is a design element that is more expensive than surface stormwater and carries with it a maintenance agreement and inspections that occur with some frequency. So the system is installed and then it is frequently maintained and inspected. Now, when it comes to the building is at its maximum height, 28 feet. Just by way of reference, if you were building a home in this area, you could build a home to 35 feet. This building sits 70, 80 feet from the property line. If you were to build a home or a building like that, you could build one 25 or 30 feet from the property lines. So this building is farther away. It is lower, although this is not a home. I recognize that. But it is something that can be a significant amenity, a significant additive to Linden and the surrounding communities. As you maybe you do know, maybe you don't, getting a child into daycare these days is a difficult task. It can be challenging, and there are wait lists. By providing additional capacity here in this location, you will be helping to address that and providing more childcare options for people in the community. So I would ask that you look at the staff report that was presented by the Planning Commission staff, look at the minutes of the Planning Commission hearing, understand that the professional staff at Louisville Metro and the Louisville Metro Planning Commission both agreed that this is the appropriate use, the appropriate location, the appropriate design. It complies with the comprehensive plan. I've already provided evidence to you that it complies with your ordinances when it comes to the conditional use permit. As I mentioned, the university, the foundation, understands that flooding is an issue in this area and would be happy to, and has in the past, participated to a significant degree in resolving those. But it is a very large watershed, and there's only so much that can be done.
Hey, guys. No comments, please.
So I have with me, I've got Ashley Bartley, who's with PK4. I have David Bufford with LeafSpring. I have Matt Ricketts. I have Keith Sherman. If you have questions of them, I think we'd be happy to answer questions about the development or about any of the evidence that we've provided. One thing, and I know your attorney has probably told you this before, every decision you make has to be based on substantial evidence. So things like, well, I think you should put it somewhere else, is not really substantial evidence. We've provided evidence in the form of professionally prepared studies, of our compliance with MSD's requirements, and I would ask that you, whatever decision you make, I hope that you will make the decision to approve this development and allow for this additional daycare to operate in your community. Just remind you that it does need to be based on substantial evidence. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Questions from the council?
Questions from the council then?
I have a couple.
Turn your mic on, please. Hopefully it works.
I have a couple, you were saying the number of children, so the maximum number of children is 192?
Yep. Is that correct?
That is a pretty large amount of children. for
Yeah. Thank you.
daycare.
Thank you, Ms. Stanley. My name is David Bufford. The size that the building would be built at would allow for a licensed capacity of 192, but we would operate around 170.
My next question, there's an orchard, what I call an orchard of trees there. It looked to me as if that was going to be removed. I'm just trying to see the drawing, removed and replaced with the playground. The one that's closest to our whoops now.
Okay, you're talking, I took out my surface level site photographs in order to be brief. But I think I know the stand of trees you're talking about. Yes, those would be removed. And really any development that occurs on that property will involve removing some trees and planting new trees.
some, and then the rest of those, okay.
You gotta turn
My
that
next
back on.
question, I think that area is like 18 acres or something, isn't that correct? I'm sorry if I'm incorrect.
The application's only for 2.5 of those acres.
It's only for 2.5 of those acres, so to be rezoned, just 2.5.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if anything else was to be on there, you would have to re-up. or-
Yes. If the rest of the property was proposed for development, it would either have to comply with the zoning that's on it now, or a rezoning would have to be pursued.
Okay. Someone had asked me to ask on here that for the underground basins that you're speaking of, will there be blasting? How is this
No.
going to be done? There's a pretty significant hill there right now. That's going to be leveled?
Yes. The grade will be reduced.
Okay.
The grade's going to be reduced, and one thing I'll just point out, the developer here actually did more study than you might otherwise find during this process in order to determine that underground detention was possible. So oftentimes, if a site is constrained, meaning that there's not enough space for the building and the parking and everything else, people will say, well, we can use underground detention, and they don't know what the subsurface looks like. In this case, they actually did soil borings in order to determine that the site will work and that blasting was not a concern.
So, not a concern that there will be blasting?
No, there won't need to be blasting.
There won't be, okay. In some of the other areas that are around, the one especially by our own police department, we found water aquifers that we didn't realize were there. You say these studies have been done, and my assumption is those studies have assured that that's not the case here.
We did not specifically look for the location of an aquifer. I can't say that occurred. What happened was there were soil borings done to make sure that there was sufficient depth and to put the system in. Now, in this location, one other thing that's important is that the building and the improvements are being kept out of the local regulatory floodplain, which is typically a little bit bigger than the FEMA floodplain. I don't think the aquifer would be at an elevation that is higher than the floodplain. I think it would certainly be below the stream. And so we're not going to be disturbing to a depth that gets to the stream level.
I've got some questions for you. You were talking about the maintenance for the maintenance agreement, and you stated it was frequently inspected. Do you have a copy of that maintenance agreement and what that includes?
I do not. That was not part of the record at the Planning Commission. However, MSD's ordinance requires annual inspections.
And who is in charge of ensuring that that's actually completed?
It's in an agreement reached between the developer and MSD. MSD is the agency who's going to perform those inspections.
What properties in Linden, if you're aware of any, have that type of underground water retention system?
I don't know.
Okay.
And that again was not part of the record of the Planning Commission.
Going back to Vicky's question about the maximum number of children, you said 192, but it's going to operate around 170. I thought there was no maximum number of children. When I was watching the video is there not?
No, there are limitations that are present on how LeafSpring operates. There are also limitations based on the square footage of the classroom space in the building. And every daycare is required to be licensed by the state and has a maximum capacity. So while the square footage in this location, if you just apply the maximum amount that Kentucky would allow, reaches 192, LeafSpring is operating at a lower level.
And then, so there's trees being taken down due to the fact that the playground can't go behind the building, correct?
No, the trees are really kind of they're closer to the corner of Whips Mill and Old Whips Mill.
Okay.
And so really what is affecting them is parking and a little bit of the building.
Okay.
So the playground, I don't know if we could attribute tree removal to the playground.
Well, so the playground is gonna go if we're facing the property, the back left, by Old West Mill, or in the middle of the property?
Kind of medium left. I mean, there are two playgrounds. There's one on the right side, one on the left side. The smaller one is the one on the left side. And it's about halfway back the building.
Okay, and then why was the employee entrance moved closer to the intersection versus further away?
I'm gonna ask.
And will there be an arm or something restricting the people from leaving?
Well,
Like,
you mean between
only
the...
allowing employees to use that entrance?
Okay. For a second there, I was
No,
imagining
we're not
something
giving
different.
people hostage. No, I just wanted, because if there's two entrances, people
Yeah.
will most likely try to leave that other entrance and it won't really be an employee.
So there's
entrance,
a barrier shown on the plan. It's actually outlined on the slide that you see here, kind of the far left of the picture, where it says barrier. That is to be installed between the area where the pickup and drop off is and the employee parking. But Ashley, do you want to address the shift in the location?
Good evening, I'm Ashley Bartley, I'm a landscape architect with QK4. We moved the entrance down just really so the cars don't have to drive as far down Old Whips Mill and to be less obtrusive to the neighbors down there. Yeah, and that barrier is basically in order to only have the drop off and pick up in the front parking lot. And it could be like two bollards with a chain or something that you could, if you needed to open it for any reason, it's accessible, but you could also close it.
Okay, I see barrier on here, but it's really hard to see because of the underground detention area. Thank you.
It's a busy slide, I know. Sorry.
Any more questions, Ms. Duber?
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A question.
Yeah.
I'm curious how many staff will work there, and is the building technically in Linden, would they be subject to occupational tax?
So the total staff is 45. That represents 2 shifts. And if they're in the city of Linden and your ordinances require occupational tax, then yeah, they're going to pay the occupational tax. So
Is there any
between,
property taxes involved with this?
there's not property tax on the land because the land is owned by the university. But my understanding is that the building itself, the improvements would be subject to property tax. And personal property obviously would be as well.
Do you know the width of Old Whips Mill? The width of the street, is that 18 feet?
We're gonna get there.
Close. I don't have this. Yeah, I think it's about 18.
Back to the entrance.
Yeah, I don't have. I'd say 18 is probably, I don't have it.
She's saying 18 is the measurement there. Back to the entrance.
Anything further on that? It does vary from 16 to 18, so take the average there. Depends on what driveway you're standing in. Does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Ashburner here?
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to move on to Mr. Steve Porter, I believe, right?
Yes.
Sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Steve Porter. I am the city attorney for the city of Belmead, but I also represent tonight, besides the city of Belmead, represent a number of other concerned neighbors, most of whom are in Linden. And you will hear from a number of them tonight. At the very start, it's important for you to know a few things that might not be evident or kind of hidden in the record at the Planning Commission. First, this property being rezoned will always be property of the University of Louisville Foundation, not the applicant LeafSpring. It is part of an 18-acre tract north of Whips Mill Road. This property is across the street from the main Shelbyhurst campus owned by U of L. This campus has approximately 90 acres of commercially developed land and 126 acres of basically undeveloped land, except for 2 U of L academic buildings. This development is proposed to use approximately 2.89 acres. Interestingly, the major portion, 1.87 acres, is located in the city of Linden. A small part, including most of the Whips Mill Road frontage and the area where there is the drop-off and pickup, most of that is in the city of Belmead, and then there's a very small part that's in Louisville Metro. So this is kind of a crazy combination here. And nobody knows exactly how those boundaries were drawn many years ago, but there they are. It is obvious from the plan that a major portion of the drop-off and pickup is in Belmead. At the beginning of this process, U of L and the applicant did not even know that portion was in Belmead. Next, from the first discussion of Shelbyhurst years ago, and I was involved in that, representing Belmead to make sure that this Shelbyhurst campus would be a good neighbor to Belmead, U of L told the neighbors, and it's not in writing anywhere, so don't get mad, Matt. Not in writing, but U of L, some people at U of L told the neighbors that this 18-acre plot on the north side of Whips Mill would always remain undeveloped. This 18 acres was never designated as a campus form district, as was the entire rest of the U of L property. It is still in the neighborhood form district and is zoned R4 single-family residential. This 2.89 acre parcel is covered with 49% of mature tree canopy, which provides a significant buffer for homes on Old Whips Mill Road. The proposal plans to remove all those trees and replace with only 25% canopy of new, much smaller trees. The opposition to this proposal is really not an opposition to a daycare center on the Shelbyhurst property. It is an opposition to a location on a confined parcel at a corner location of Old Whips Mill Road and Whips Mill Road at a dangerous curve opposite a major 4-lane entrance into the main Shelbyhurst campus, adjacent to an area with serious flooding problems and facing 8 residential properties, 4 in Linden and 4 in Belmead. Testimony in the record from Karen Mohammadi, a traffic engineer with 33 years of experience, some of it teaching traffic engineering at the University of Louisville, summarized the traffic problem this way. Speeding is an issue, and the development would likely cause drivers to take more risks in their turning movement, leading to more crashes. The existence of a sight distance problem cannot be easily resolved, and a left turn lane on eastbound Whips Mill, which is in the plan, will cause delay for other movements, resulting in an unacceptable level of surface. This center needs to be inside the major Shelbyhurst campus, where there is adequate land, efficient mobility, adequate parking, and a safe delivery area. It could even be located in that campus right next to the city of Belmead, and we would have no objection. The area just across Whips Mill on Whittington is already an educational area. This would fit perfectly on the main campus. We have been told that LeafSpring does not want to be located within an office park like the Shelbyhurst main campus. However, another proposed LeafSpring is on O'Bannon Station Way, a side street in the East Point Business Center, similar to Shelbyhurst, and home to large office buildings and even a hospital. That location is not on LaGrange Road or even on the main street through the center. It's on a side street with little traffic, an ideal location for safe loading and unloading of children. Now, in order to amend the zoning map, you must find one of the following. First, the amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Second, there have been major changes, this is an or, there have been major changes of an economic, physical, or social nature within the area involved, which were not anticipated in the adopted plan, which have substantially altered the basic character of the area. Or third, that the existing zoning is inappropriate and that the proposed zoning classification is appropriate. This proposal is obviously not in agreement with the current plan, which designates this for single-family use. There have been no major changes in the area which have changed the character of the area since the comprehensive plan was adopted. Therefore, you have only one possibility for approving a zoning change, and it is up to you. Anything from the Planning Commission is merely a recommendation. You must find that it is an appropriate use because this is because this is a commercial use opposite residential uses, because this could cause even more flooding problems in the area, because the curve of Whips Mill Road is a blind curve which will cause traffic dangers, as evidenced by the traffic engineer's report, because the drop-off and pickup hours of a daycare center conflict with the hours of heavy traffic on Whips Mill Road, because most of this 18 acres is in a protected waterway or floodplain and is heavily vegetated, because this 18 acres should be a perpetual buffer between the surrounding residential uses and the dense business campus, and because the university has many acres of appropriate and safe vacant land available just yards away from this intersection. We believe this proposed use is inappropriate and should be denied. Thank you for listening.
I have a question, please.
I'm sorry?
That's where you going. I'm sorry, I missed this. What percentage of this acreage is in Belmead?
Oh, it's,
You mentioned it.
it's basically the front parking lot. I can't tell exactly what the percentage is, but it's a small part. But the whole area where the loading and unloading, most of that is in Belmead.
Okay, just wondering why this wasn't brought before Belmead.
Beg pardon?
It's allowed within.
Okay. This did also, and this maybe was a question for the other person, but was a study done concerning traffic through the Holly Springs subdivision, cutting from Linden Lane, New LaGrange to Whips Mill?
Well, there's really been two traffic studies done. One traffic study is done by the applicant, and then we had a traffic engineer, as I said, a very experienced engineer, Karen, analyzed their traffic study and found various flaws with it. I can't specifically say that somebody addressed the Holly Springs, but certainly it would be a possibility that people would come through Holly Springs to get to this. Okay. Anything else?
Any more questions?
What is this property? Why was this property not rezoned like the rest of U of L?
Well, again, I was involved many years ago, and Glenn Price represented the university back then, and Glenn and I spent a lot of time on this. And actually, we supported the whole idea of the Shelbyhurst campus, but the whole Shelbyhurst campus is in the campus foreign district. That's all of what you see now, and even the part on the other side of Hurstburn Lane, that vacant land on the other side of Hurstburn Lane. That is all in the campus farm district. This 18 acres is still in the neighborhood farm district and is still zoned single-family R4. Our feeling is that that was because that was supposed to become a buffer to separate the houses and properties on Old Whips Mill, and Holly Springs and other areas from a very dense commercial business office park that Shelbyhurst has become, and a very successful office park. Don't get me wrong here. I'm a great supporter of the current Shelbyhurst campus, and it's been a good neighbor. But this 18 acres, it's for the most part, probably 13 or 14 acres of it is in the floodplain or the floodway. So there's not a whole lot of it could be developed. But this 2.89 that they want to develop, there could be another 2 or 3 acres that could be developed also. And we think that this entire 18 acres should be preserved as a buffer for the neighborhood, as a place for wildlife, a place for drainage, etc.
Any more?
Do you have a representative from U of L if you want to
That
answer?
would be great, because I apologize, my question probably
Yeah.
should have been more.
I mean, this is conjecture.
That's fine.
We have a representative from the university to answer that question.
And thank you, Mr. Porter.
Yeah.
Good evening, my name is Matt Ricketts, I'm with NTS Development Company, and we are representing the University of Louisville, and I, unlike most people in this room, have continuity on this project dating back to Glenn Price and the early efforts of the university to rezone the main campus, so I can answer your question. At the time, and this was back in 2009, I believe, that the university wanted to start development of the main campus, and that's why the perimeter was established basically from Hirschburn Lane to Whips Mill Road and Shelbyville Road and Belmead to address that area as the main campus, because that was the focus of their initial efforts in developing the property to help with the mission of the university. The reason why this North Whips Mill site was not contemplated at this time, it was recognized that it is a little bit different of a site that would require different care and attention and possibly a different use that was much less dense and more neighborhood appropriate than the main campus. And I would point you to the main campus, which has a 400-foot transitional buffer with Belmead, which contemplates 4-story large, and I mean 125 to 150,000 square foot office buildings with substantial parking and so forth around it. This site is obviously much different, and it's the mission of the university to provide a use here that is neighborhood friendly and appropriate. They feel like this site lends itself to this perfect transition use of a daycare which supports the community and provides minimal disturbance from a visual perspective, as well as they've been even more sensitive with the Bufford family to address drainage and other concerns of the community. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sign-in sheet?
Yeah, we go with.
Could I have one of my officers in the back collect the sign-in sheets from outside, please?
Let's go with that.
Yeah, that means you, Sergeant, right? Thank you, sir. I was gonna send that out to show.
Mr. May I add one comment while they're pulling the list?
Sir, yes.
I'm sorry.
Come back up to the podium, please, yeah.
My apologies. One extra element that is significant to answering your question is, if we go back in time to 2015, it was obvious that the university had the intention to develop this whole 18 acres, and a plan was presented for multifamily on that site. The takeaway that, and I was at that meeting and all the preparatory meetings for that as well, and again, no comment or commitment was ever made by the university to preserve this land in any form or fashion. I think what you have in these zoning discussions is you have maps that, in this case, applied to the main campus rezoning, and there was discussion about land in that rezoning remaining green space. The land that they were referring to in those conversations was the MSD easement area, the detention area, which is being preserved as green space. I don't know the exact acreage, but it's far more than what we're talking about on this side of the street. So it's important to clarify that point, that there was no commitment ever made by the university that this would not be developed. It was not the subject of the original rezoning of the main campus. So fast forward to 2015, a multi-family plan was presented. The takeaway from that meeting, what we heard from the neighborhoods and the constituents and stakeholders, was that they wanted something less dense, more neighborhood appropriate. They wanted us to be sensitive to traffic and sensitive to watershed issues. This plan provides that perfect solution for those things. So the university truly feels like they listened. Oh, I'm sorry, one other thing that they heard at the meeting was that they wanted a community gathering space, a park-like area where people could gather and have entertainment and so forth. The university invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in an amphitheater that's adjacent to the water retention area on the south side of Whips Mill Road for just that purpose. They heard the community's request for a public gathering space. They responded to that and have provided that. So for people to say that the university hasn't been a good neighbor is quite disingenuous if they're close to the facts and understand all the good things that the university has done. So,
Hold on with the comments, folks, please.
any other questions? Yes, sir.
Do any of the commercial properties on Shelby campus pay property taxes?
None of them pay property taxes, they pay improvement taxes. So basically, if you have a lot that's worth $100,000, but the building's worth 17, 18 million, they pay the property tax on the 17 or 18 million.
So like Churchill Downs and the Heaven Hill, or whatever it is, just opened up, they don't pay property taxes, just improvements?
Well, it's the building, all the improvements and the contents of furniture and things like that you would normally be taxed on. The land itself is not taxed because that is state-owned property. So that's a small portion of what would normally be the entire tax bill. Yes, ma'am, you have a question?
Well, I did, it may not be pertinent to this situation, but I'm just, that whole area, it was purchased from whom?
This exact parcel, I assume, is part of the larger parcel, which came as a result of a donation from Kentucky Southern. They donated it to the university when it, at the time, was a private university. It soon after, a year or so after, became a public university, the University of Louisville. And so therefore, it became state-owned land at that time.
And then it just, that small little area jumped across Whips, which is,
Yeah,
I know.
I
mean,
can't speak to
like
the
I say,
history
it's
of who owned that. I think I can speculate as to reasons, but I don't know for sure.
just found it interesting.
Probably the people that know that,
history.
the people that know that probably know about the Bellmead lines in there somewhere too. I don't know.
Exactly. Good thing.
Thank you all very much.
All right, thank you. We've got some folks here that do wish to speak. We have James Martin first, please.
Thank you all very much. I really appreciate you all being here. I'm the mayor of the city of Bellmead, and as you know, Linden and Bellmead are neighbors. Our neighbors literally face each other across Whips Mill Road and across Wood Road. And but the one thing that we don't have in the city of Bellmead is the ability to govern our own zoning. We are completely dependent upon Louisville Metro to do that zoning. And that's why when neighbors came to me who live in my neighborhood and said, hey, you know, this commercial property is going to be right in my front yard, I had to tell them the only thing we can do is go to the city of Linden. We don't have any zoning authority in the city of Bellmead. And so I'm just asking you to say no to protect those adjacent neighbors on that very small old Whips Mill Road and on the bigger Whips Mill Road. These neighbors that already have lost their on-street parking, they're now going to be faced with these left-hand turning lanes, these dangerous turning patterns out of North Whittington Parkway. That's all the evidence you need. You know, you see those roads, you know those small roads and the amount of traffic. And of course, we don't even know how much traffic is eventually going to be in those intersections because the Shelby campus is only half developed. So you're just going to have the amount of traffic you're going to have going in and out of that North Whittington Parkway intersection is dangerous there. And so I'm just asking you to say no just to protect the adjacent residents. And I really do appreciate your time, and I'm thrilled that you all do have the ability to zone for your own city, and really you should appreciate that privilege. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Peggy Meyer, signed in. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I'm Peggy Meyer, and I live at 9004 Linden Lakes Place. I did my show and tell on the flooding in Linden Lakes to the Louisville Planning Commission public hearing, and that is available to you all, and you all have the opportunity to see that. So tonight I would like to first thank Councilwoman Bartow for her leadership in 1997 for the $500,000 that the funding for the development of the Whips Mill Basin. And so I applaud you for that. And I'd also like to thank U of L for the 40 acres. Because without those 40 acres and without that basin, Linden Lakes would not have been developed. And when I talked to MSD today, they say to me, today, Linden Lakes would not be approved to be developed. And that is because of the change in the flooding and the floodplain in our city. The basin was at one time sufficient, and it did clear land for that development, but it is not, the floodplain has been extended. Today, the basin is now getting full under normal conditions. And if we, the city of Linden, rezone the 2.7 acres, we open up all of that stretch of land on Whips Mill to be developed. Because the zoning for the rest of that land is under Louisville Metro. So that any development on the rest of that land would not come to the city of Linden for rezoning or approval. Now, if I'm incorrect, you guys speak up. Okay. All right. The rezoning will open up the entire property to commercial development on Whips Mill Road. More runoff will come from Beargrass Creek, from that development. Not to mention the continued development on Shelbyhurst. Because their drainage and their runoff does not go into the basin. If you will look, it comes underneath Whips Mill and through their own runoff. The property to be rezoned has proposed the underground retention, the detention area. That detention will hold 102,000 gallons of water. 2 points I ask you to consider. Do you want to open the door to commercial development along Whips Mill Road? Because once this 2.7 acres is rezoned by the city of Linden, that whole stretch is available for development. No one developing above us, above the basin, there's no one above there who looks and says, oh, this detention, this water is going to run down to the basin at Whips Mill and put more water on Linden. No one is looking at that. And maybe we all need to continue to start going to the Louisville Planning Commission meetings because they're not looking at it. Maybe we need to say, how much water does that put to the basin? We're not doing that, we're not asking them that. Today, the development I live in and love, according to MSD, would not be approved for development because Linden is now in, we are now in the floodplain. That floodplain extends now even into the Elks area, Elks Club. There are 70 homes, not just the 5 homes on Whips Mill that are impacted by Beargrass Creek flooding. There are 70 homes along the Beargrass Creek. We would like to say no to even 102,000 more gallons. And I would ask you, I would say that they have proposed, Cliff, and they've talked to us about an additional study regarding the flooding issues using current, but we want them to use, if this was going to happen, we would want participation in that study. We would want current relevant data used. And I don't, if you really want to see a place where LeafSpring would go, I drove out to East Point to the East Point business area, and I drove past that piece of property, and I will tell you, it's perfect. It's perfect. LeafSpring, it's a lovely place. It's in a business area, and it's a very lovely place to have a school. So thank you all very much, and I would just ask you all to say no to this development at this time. Thank you.
Bill Watkins. Bill Watkins. Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Bill Watkins, and I live at 9007 Spruce Street Place. I've been a resident of Holly Springs for 38 and a half years and have seen a lot of changes. At the Metro Zoning Board meeting a month or so ago when it happened, the representative from LeafSprings noted that there was no traffic issues over in their Norton Commons facility, and was saying they don't anticipate traffic problems off of Whiffs Mill. If you look at the map that I handed out prior to that, to the meeting tonight, you can see that those locations could not be more different. It's like comparing heaven and hell. As he said earlier, Whiffs Mill is a collector road with a lot of traffic. If you look at the location over in Norton Commons, there's a blue X in the middle of the map that I printed out for you. You have one entrance coming off of Brownsboro Road, one off of Chamberlain Lane, all going through residential areas. 0.3 of a mile in one place, 0.4 of a mile in another. They all have a 15 mile an hour speed limit. So that's a big difference from cars doing 35, 40, and 45 miles an hour on Whiffs Mill, and the problems that might be associated with traffic accidents and so forth. So just consider that. Vicki, to address your question, having lived in Holly Springs as long as I have, there is a huge difference in the cut-throughs from the people in Shelbyhurst that work there, knowing that that's the best way to get over to New LaGrange Road. Just last Thursday, we were going out to dinner with our daughter, who happened to used to live in Norton Commons and moved back to Holly Springs, right next door to us, because she loves it. We go out to turn on to New LaGrange Road. Traffic was backed up all the way from Linden Lane past Willow Springs Drive. There was no way we could ever make a left-hand turn on that. So we ended up having to turn right and go down back Holly Springs Drive, back out to Whiffs Mill to turn to go to Shelbyville Road.
1 minute, sir.
So I'm here to ask you, I'm not here to make a buck off of development. I'm here to say, let's keep God's green little triangle as a buffer and as a place that people can enjoy the beauty and know all the things that it serves for wildlife and everybody else in the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And it just needs to be said, if I mispronounce your name, I apologize on this list. Some of the handwriting is a little bit difficult. I do have Dan Otter. Otter? Yes, sir. Correct me if I said your name wrong. I apologize.
You got it right. Dan Otter. I live on Perry Road, about 190 yards as the crow flies from this proposed development. And I do treasure the fact that we as Linden have a commission that is not beholden to anybody. They have the ability to make this decision with no intimidation. And I respect that you guys put in the time to volunteer to be on this board and look out for the interests of the residents, where the local planning commission has no such responsibility. You guys are in control of what happens and cannot be intimidated to do something that you think is ill-planned. My concerns have already been met to a large degree, and I won't take up too much time. the fact that we have 50% tree canopy on this property right now, and the fact that the amount of saved tree canopy is going to be 0, the fact that ultimately there needs to be 25% tree canopy, but only, according to the site plan, only 42 type A trees are expected to go in those. Those are better known as lollipops. They're so small. It will take decades before we get back to the required 25% tree canopy, which is half of what we currently have. This is clear cutting, pure and simple. And then the issue related to Mr. Ricketts about this being family-friendly, residentially blending in, it's hard for me to imagine when we can anticipate, typically the houses in this area are roughly 1,800, 1,900 square feet, and this facility is 19,000 square feet. It is by a factor of 10 that it towers over the rest. And there's going to be a rather large parking lot that will be lighted all through the night. So, you know, it's kind of like having a Thornton's gas station next to us. And I don't like that prospect, particularly in the winter, because I'm dead in the sight vision of it when the leaves come down. So this is not residential family. This is residential zoning that's coming straight up against commercial. And there's many other issues, but those were my main concerns. Essentially, we have unmerited zoning variances. Why are we giving them a pass on a sidewalk when we need that sidewalk to get to the very nice Shelbyhurst campus next door to us? They also have a limited landscape border of only 15 feet. They've crammed everything up towards Whips Mill Road to get out of the flood zone. Why are we letting them have these particular unmerited zoning variances while everybody else has to go by the rules? We're making exceptional rules that aren't based in true facts. You can look on AI, just Google unmerited zoning variances, and they have not met the criteria to go ahead and get these zoning variances from this board. So we need the sidewalks, we need an appropriate barrier, landscape barrier, and I don't see why we're giving this away when there are flat spots across the road, 80 some odd acres that have yet to be developed. It doesn't make sense. And that's all we're asking you to do, is to use your common sense, and you have the power to do that. You are in control of this. You have ultimate control of how this plays out, and I have confidence that you will take all these things in consideration and make an appropriate decision. And I thank you for your time on this board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm sticking with the Linden residents first here, folks, so bear with us. We'll try to get to everybody, as many as we can. I do have Stacy Griesbach next, please. You here? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, and thank you all for your time tonight. My name is Stacy Griesbach. I live at 9015 Old Whips Mill Road. I am directly affected by this development, as it is going to flood my property even more. We are currently almost 100% in the floodplain now because of all the building that's been going on at U of L. I know it's great for the economy and for the market, but for my property and my property value, it is absolutely rented. I am now required to get flood insurance on my property, as well as paying all the taxes. My grandfather served on this board, as you know, Susan, for years before he retired. And as well as, you know, being part of the community for over 70 years, my family has watched all the development. We've watched our properties flood. My biggest concern is with the traffic study. Have you all taken into consideration in that traffic study the apartments that are going in directly behind me, 64 units that are going to start being built here soon in between us and Linden Crossing? Did they take into account the study of the traffic for the Greek church that's getting ready to be rebuilt? And they're adding to their facility, so that's gonna be more traffic added, as well as the other developments at U of L. Like, is anybody considering all those other plans that are gonna go in this traffic study and be added to Whips Mill? Is that part of what they studied with the traffic? Do you all know? I mean, these are questions that are very concerning to me, and I would like to know the answers to. Also, with those 64 apartments that are being built behind me, there is a retention pond being put in there. Then there's a retention pond being put in underground up here on the hill. So now our properties are either side with retention basins, so when those overflow and they're not maintained annually by MSD, which I have no faith in at all, you know, that's going to completely trap in all of our families on Old Whips Mill Road. How is emergency services going to get to us? I know I have an elderly parent that lives with me. I know the Thomases have elderly parents as well. Like, how is EMS going to get to us? And if something happens with these 2 retention ponds going in? Can anybody answer that question? Has any studies been done on what's being built around us that's going to add to LeafSprings? So these are concerns we have, as well as concerns that have already been brought up tonight. And I just want you all to take that into consideration when you're thinking about this. Thank you.
Okay, bear with me on this. Bert Deutsch? Deutsch. Bert. You, sir, would you like to speak? I'm going down the list. No? Bert Deutsch? Deutsch? Bert? D-E-U-T-S-C-H. It's on here. Okay. Very good. Let's go to,
I'm only hearing what you're saying.
you can't hear me. Okay. Well, let me pick up people then. Judy Sykes. Judy Sykes. Here.
Good evening, Judy Sykes. I live at 8605 Holston Road in the city of Bellmead. Oh,
Sorry.
down.
Okay, thank you.
Is this
folks.
better? Sorry. Before I begin, Matt, I have to chuckle about your statement about the entertainment area on U of L's campus. Because when Ramsey was president and we started this whole U of L development, I suggested that we put in a place where the art students could come and have entertainment. I live in Bellmead. I've never gotten a notification of any sort of flyer that there's a program being presented on Shelby Hill's campus. I guess you were at Margaret Mary with my son, or at St. X at the time. I don't even know if you weren't even involved in all of this.
I live on the street, and I was certainly involved with all of them.
Well, I know you weren't involved in all that development, though. I thank you for having us this evening. I sincerely hope you're listening to what we have to say and not just hearing us. The issue, as Steve has already said, is not a daycare center. The issue is safety for the babies on board and the drivers who are on Whips Mill, especially during the hours of drop-off and pickup. LeafSpring has told us all about the wonderful daycare they want to build with the 40 parking spots. So why aren't they placing it on a safer Shelbyhurst campus instead of a curb on Whips Mill? Is it money? I mean, is it because the land for LeafSpring is cheaper on Whips Mill than it would be if they had to build it on Shelbyhurst campus? Or is it because U of L doesn't want anything built on Shelbyhurst unless it is a 4 to 5 office building, which brings in more money? So then is the issue money? And that's it. Please take to heart what we've said tonight, as it will take only one accident and you will be looking at each other saying, why did we approve this project.
Jennifer Barker.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Barker. I live at 9011 Old Whips Mill on the corner of Ormsby and Old Whips Mill, directly impacted by any flooding that we currently have or which could be added to. I'm against the siting of the LeafSpring daycare, not the daycare. And Peggy did a great job of talking about the flooding concerns. But I also want to speak about the feel of Linden and how our city council can protect the homeowners and the residential feel of our community. Somebody else already mentioned, if this 2.8 acres gets zoned commercial, we feel it will be the first of the domino to go along there. And another gentleman talked about the exceptions that were granted. Linden has a say. If we want a buffer more than however many feet it is from the street to the parking lot, then we can demand that they meet the Louisville zoning without an exception for the sidewalks and the visual screening. I do feel like U of L has been a great neighbor in developing Shelbyhurst. I used to live in Belmead, but I do not feel like this proposal is being a great neighbor to the homeowners that border that property. Again, repeating the other people, I do want to thank you because I came to the last meeting. I want to thank you for hearing from us as individuals in addition to the zoning meeting. Thank you.
John Deering.
Hi, I'm John Deering. We've lived in Linden now for roughly 30 years in the neighborhood. I'd just like to say that we are opposed to this proposed rezoning. It has nothing to do with the school. The school itself sounds like a wonderful facility. And my wife has many years as a pre-primary school teacher, so we support education, we support development. I used to have a small business in Linden, so it's not in my backyard or an anti-growth agenda. It's that this particular location is just so poorly suited for commercial development. You've already heard the traffic issues, the intersection with existing residential homes. That's going to fundamentally change the character of this part of the city. This LeafSpring school is part of a franchise. It's a relatively small national franchise, 14 schools. So while this will be local Louisvillians working there, it's not really a small Louisville business. It's controlled in part by the major franchise. And franchises, they come and they go, especially small, newer ones. So you'd have to understand that what you think you're investing in today, 5 years from now, may not be a school or this type of school. And then you've got a big facility here that you have to try to re-let. I do agree that U of L has done a great job in the office park. I cut through there almost daily. I don't think they've been a particularly good steward, though, on this 18 acres in terms of their proposed use in the past. That multi-unit apartment complex 10 years ago, bad idea. And the community got together and reminded them it was a bad idea for various reasons. And that project was pulled. I think this is a bad idea as well. It's marketed as low impact. But it's almost 20,000 square feet. It's the construction of 2 new roads. It's the redoing of sewers. It's clearing out a grove of mature trees, which are still your best mitigant against runoff. So for a wide variety of reasons, I don't think this is the best use of that space. I mean, moved to Linden and have remained in Linden over the years because it has a really nice balance of residential, commercial, and park and green space. And so this buffer is important in maintaining that integrity. So I hope you'll do what I think clearly the majority of people in Linden will support, and that is not to approve this very significant change. Thank you.
Lisa Schmidt. Lisa Schmidt.
Good evening. I want to thank you all for hearing us. My name is Lisa Schmidt. I have lived in this area for 40 years. I was in Holly Springs for 20, and now I live on Mill Stream. I live at 311 Mill Stream Place. Our house backs up to the creek that flows along through there. I, like so many others here, I totally agree with so many of the issues that have been brought up, whether it's the tree canopy or the traffic. I'm really baffled about the traffic study that he's saying there's less traffic. There's no way. It has become really hard for us to turn out of Mill Stream and turn left onto Whips Mill at particular times of the day. I think there's considerations to be made for the wildlife that is in this tree canopy area and this buffer zone that we have, and I think it's important to maintain that. I think it is ridiculous to grant these variances for this proposal when they're trying to cram this building up in the top corner of this property on this hill, and then they're trying to talk about a retention basin that's going to be underground, which is going next to a creek and in a floodplain. There's so much of it that doesn't make sense to me. I know they've done studies, but I just disagree with so much of what's been presented. I appreciate the things that have already been presented, and I agree with most of them that are coming from the attorney from Belmead and from the people that have already spoken on behalf of Say No to LeafSpring, and I ask you all to seriously consider what you're saying yes to if you say yes. And I ask you to seriously look at the things that have been presented and determine, is this really the right thing for the city of Linden? And I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Mike King.
Good evening again. My name is Mike King, K-I-N-G. I'm a resident of Holly Springs, and I've lived there for 25 years. I have actually 12 pages of information that I could talk about. A lot of it is redundant from what other people have said. I do want to make just some general comments on this that have not been covered. One, during a recent event in Holly Springs, 27 neighbors were questioned about this development. 12 of the neighbors actually have kids that are under the age of 10, a lot of them being babies. Every single one of them said no, they do not need.
Was this presented at the planning commission? Okay, then you shouldn't be presenting it to the council.
Okay, sorry.
That's not true.
Yeah,
it's true. This is new evidence. He is asserting facts.
Hold on, folks, hold on.
Hold on.
Hold on.
Okay. So
we got Mr. Siegler.
So I will retract that.
the council has to consider the record below, not new evidence that's presented here.
That's fine. My apologies. Also, I would like to, and this is similar to what some other people said, the big question that came up is, why does U of L want to jam this facility? Great sales job. It's a good looking facility. There's no question on that, as other people have said. Why do they want to jam it into this small location? That's one of the big questions that came out. We went through this with the apartments that were there, and now it seems like a lot of us feel like we're going through that again. The other questions that they had was, why is U of L, LeafSpring, and the Beaufort Family Foundation wanting to be adversarial against the neighborhoods that are surrounding this? And that was a question like, well, they're trying to do this building that's not adversarial, but that's the way people are feeling. There are two areas that are of concern, and one of them was sort of mentioned at one of the previous meetings. And by the way, I have read all the meeting notes, all the plans, the Planning Commission information, comments, and studies. And I have students that are working on their PhDs, and you can take a study and you can manipulate it and have it present any way you want. So some of the studies have to be looked at real careful, depending on who's writing those. But one of the concerns I do have is, and this goes back to something that was brought up in St. Matthews, on these holding storage tanks. There's more and more research being done on them, where they're placed and what comes out of them. If these are not positioned right and are higher level where they drain after the fact, they pick up a residue. The residue is from the roads, from the ground, from the rainwater wash off, and it forms a silt that sits in the bottom of the storage tanks. In these storage tanks, it also develops toxins, including radon, dioxane, and other fossil fuels that will actually evaporate up, and they're carcinogenic, like that. And,
That's not new evidence, it's an opinion.
yeah.
You're talking about.
This was presented
We're down to
in
30
St. Matthews.
We're down to 30 seconds.
The last thing is, eventually, the corridor is gonna have to be rebuilt. You know, it happens everywhere you go, whether through expansion, through complaints, or whatever. When that has to be rebuilt, it's gonna take the taxpayers' money to rebuild it. We're probably gonna, who knows how much it's gonna cost, but that money to rebuild that whole corner is gonna come out of the taxpayers that live in Linden, Holly Springs, and the general area. So with that, thank you very much for hearing me. Sorry for stepping over the bounds on fun, but I appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you, Mr. King. We got Sam Wilson. Minutes.
Thank you. Again, thank you for being here today. And I agree with so much that has been said. My family, my mom and dad are Lindenites. This is where they've grown up. Donald Bryant and Bonnie Bryant. We were actually 7809 New LaGrange Road. And so when we looked to buy a house, we bought a house here in Linden. It's 8809 Whips Mill Road. So it's 4 houses down from the proposed site. And I'd like to be clear, I'm not against the development of that. Actually, I spoke to Mr. Ricketts 10 years ago, and he asked me why I was against building the proposals over at Shelbyhurst campus at that time. Well, at the time, it was hotels, shopping centers, and that's before even Value Market was demolished and all the hotels were being built. Like, they were in planning at that time. So it didn't make sense to me that it would be stores and hotels. I remember standing outside of that meeting, and Mr. Ricketts asked me like why I'm against it. And I literally turned and I was like, that plot of land across the street is what I'm most concerned about, because it's a protected watershed. It's always been a protected watershed. The floodplain has increased. When we purchased our house, the floodplain wasn't anywhere near our house at the time. Within the 12 years that we've been there, now it's in the corner of our property. Things change, developments happen. That's how life works. My concern is that we're trying to change it to a zoning that technically didn't have to be done. It's a specific plot of land where Plan 2040, which is not new evidence, that is out there, that we have these new rules, and if you look at them, it's almost as if they apply specifically to this situation to help change, not help, to guide in a multifamily use residential. So if you do multifamily use residential there on that corner, what succeeds on the other side? right? Because that becomes your buffer, that's your multi-use. So what can we look, can we do more dense apartments over there? NTS has done a wonderful job on the campus. I will not take that away from them. I'm also a realist. I know what we're up against over here. We have Densmore and Shoal. Like, that is one of the premier litigations right here in the state. So they've done their work. Like, it's literally their job, right? We're constituents and people within a community. If you go through and look at what Plan 2040, specifically when you break that down, it has objectives. You have objective 1, or goal 1, objective B, and it's on page 88. It talks specifically about watersheds and protecting that. If you look at the MSD Middle Fork Beargrass Creek Watershed Base Plan, public, it's on page 102. If you look at that, they talk specifically, MSD in their own reports talk specifically about removing the tree line and what that causes further down on the creek. If an underground containment is such a good idea, why didn't we do that across the street? We have an open retention pond. If containment was better, right, at that point, why didn't we do it over there? Because we can develop over there on top of that as well, right? You can remap and rezone for parking and whatnot. So that's nothing. So I say no, because it needs to stay residential. It's that way for a reason. They hit a roadblock years ago with it. And there is an article in WDRB that actually does state that Mr. Price does say in the article that it wouldn't be developed in the foreseeable future. It says, the land off Woodsmill Road will remain vacant with no development proposed for the foreseeable future. So that was in 2015. You can look it up.
Thank you, Em. Kevin Craycroft. Sorry about the barricade there.
My name is Kevin Craycroft. I live at 1008 Holly Springs Drive, and really enjoy living there. Just to make this brief, thank you all for your time, just considering the concerns of the neighborhoods around here in Linden. Other than the flooding issues, other than the traffic concerns, one of my biggest concerns that I'd like for you to make sure that you're fully considering is the waivers. It seems to me that we try to create a certain look of an area for the neighborhoods that are in the area, and this seems to be something in which they want to shoehorn in their development, and yet being asked to waive the standards and methods of typical construction that might have more of a setback and make the property look better into the neighborhood. But those are being asked to maximize the use that they have of that area. So the use then that they're wanting to build is superseding what it's going to look like for the neighborhood. And to me, that's a slippery slope. If you guys, as our representatives, that seems that we put those guidelines in place for a reason, so that when construction happens and people want to build, as our communities build out, that they look nice. That's why when we drive through the Shelbyhurst campus, it looks nice, because things are set back. There are standards that they brought in to make things look good. To me, the design they have here just doesn't take that into consideration at all. And then to sell it like it's a favor to the neighborhood, I think, it just doesn't make any sense. Thank you for your time.
We're going to do just a few more here, folks. Move on to a Belmead resident, Sandy Walker. Is that right? We only have a few more left without being redundant.
Good evening. I'm Sandy Walker, 210 Dorchester Road. I'm one of the commissioners for the city of Belmead. You also learned very quickly I'm not a public speaker. I can write, don't speak well, but here we are. This is important to me, and I did raise this issue at the public meeting, and understand is that the city of Belmead has a water pressure problem in certain areas. It's good enough for the city of Louisville Water Company. In other areas, it's at 60 pounds, and that's if you don't turn on anything else in your house, okay? That's where they measure it, with nothing else running. And we have a pipeline that runs down the berm, the U of L berm, down to the end of that berm. And in their designs, they have one pipeline that comes across, looks like, I guess it's across Whisk Mill, and into this LeafSpring development. And that's what's supplying 200 kids flushing toilets all day long, okay? And it's the one pipeline that comes down through Dorchester. Right now, Belmead is already, with our 75-year-old infrastructure, supplying parts of the Shelby campus. When they had to shut off some buildings here a couple years back, and I'm the Public Works Commissioner there, so I kind of got called in when they do things like that. And they wanted to shut off some supplies to some building over on Shelby campus. Well, they did. They had to keep looking and keep looking. They had to back it up to the entrance, the Moorgate entrance and Dorchester intersection of Belmead to get to the shut-off. They cut into our road and they shut it off. And suddenly I'm getting calls from people on Dorchester Road, their water's shut off. So the infrastructure of Belmead, and understand all the infrastructure for the Shelby campus was paid by tax dollars. The developers were very upset during that time that they were being put at other developers at a disadvantage because they had to pay for their own infrastructure. And so part of the 75-year-old infrastructure that's from the city of Belmead and under our ground is now being used for Shelby campus already. And they want to take that same pipeline that comes down the berm, the best I can tell. I'm not a developer. I can't read, I just see what I saw on the plot maps that I got from the city of Louisville. And one big pipeline comes across the street and supplies all of LeafSpring. And I brought this up at the Planning Commission meeting, and I think the response came back was, well, I haven't heard anything about that. Well, I have. And so do I know all the answers? No. But I do have the questions, and I think somebody needs to really investigate, not just after it happens, and we got to figure out what to do about a water pressure problem. I don't know how much water 200 children a day take and 40 employees. 200, I'm rounding up. I'm sure somebody will get me on that. 170, let's be good here, 150. Okay, how many toilets flush a day in your home with one child? Okay, so that's where you're going to be. I don't know how it affects us. I know that we're already kind of on the edge on some of our homes. And I really have a great concern about that.
30 seconds.
Yes, sir.
30 seconds.
Done. I am good. I'll tell you one thing about safety. I will tell you about safety. I constantly have to come down to Hurstburn Lane, and I do not come out of Belmead and take a left onto Sheldon Road because I don't want to cross 2 lanes plus a turn lane and then get to my lane. So I consistently come down here and come down to Whisk Mill and take a right, go up Whisk Mill, and eventually work myself back over to Hurstburn. With this development, everyone, I can't be the only person, but everyone that's doing that is going to have to start making this seriously dangerous, consistently left turn on the Sheldon Road. And so about accidents happening, I hope it's not me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I would give both the lawyers a chance to sum up just for a few minutes and then be done.
Very good.
Can I please say something?
We're taking the folks that live immediately close. There's only a few folks left. Do you have anything new to add?
Yes, I do. I promise.
We'll give you one more 3 minutes. We might have 2 more here. 3 minutes.
We're not going to let everyone
Tell us your name. If you signed up, I've only got a few more to go, and I'm staying with the Linden folks, the folks that are well within a stone's throw of this facility, and there's not very many more that are left off this list. So I think your address, where do you live, and you tell us your name?
1213 Linden Crossing.
Linden Crossing.
New LaGrange Road.
On
I
New
just had
LaGrange,
like two
right.
things to say,
Okay.
questions
So,
about.
3 minutes.
So, conditional use.
Or less, please.
Sorry.
Very good.
Conditional use. So, conditional use is the thing where they didn't meet our requirements in the first place, so they're having to get a conditional use for what they're gonna do. So that's one thing. Two, they said that they did soil samples. I'm wondering what all they tested for. Did they test for contamination, like if there was a dump there, if there was any contamination in the soil? And that's really it. That's all I got.
Okay.
I won't vote no, though.
Okay, so is there anybody that signed up that said they wanted to speak that has something new to add that is not, has not already been heard? I've only got a handful left, but it's 7:36.
I would like to speak.
What's your name, ma'am?
Teresa Mater.
Teresa Mater. Very good. Come on up.
Thank you. Teresa Mater, 207 Woodcleft.
Woodcleft.
I'll take about 30 seconds. First, I want to say thank you for your thoughtful questions tonight, which is a very different experience than that at the Louisville Metro zonings meeting, which was horrible. We were all dismissed. Please listen to your residents of Linden. When have you ever seen such a large turnout in opposition of something in this city? I mean, this is crazy. I ask that you listen to your constituents and vote no, and please choose people over profit. Thank you.
We are going to go ahead and have Mr. Ashburner come back on if you have any remarks to make. Move on.
I appreciate the opportunity. There were a few things that were said that I feel like I need to address to the members of the council. One, it was stated that the comprehensive plan does not support this rezoning. The rezoning is from R4 to R5A, just so you all know, and that's really just in order to allow for the conditional use permit to be used. As you all may or may not know, a conditional use is not a use that is a dramatic deviation from a zoning ordinance. It is a use that is contemplated in a zoning ordinance and one that typically requires a second look. For reference, in the R4 zone, there are a variety of permitted uses, including community centers, including schools, including other uses that could go on the subject property without a conditional use permit. And those would not, using a different permitted use would not necessarily satisfy the folks in this room. The standard that you all have to judge a zoning application by and the conditional use permit application by is compliance with the comprehensive plan. The evidence that's been presented to you by me, the evidence that's available from the staff and from the Planning Commission indicates that the application does comply with the comprehensive plan and it does comply with Linden's ordinances. The standard being espoused by most of the people behind me is not one drop, not one car, not one tree. Do nothing.
Hold on, folks.
I mean,
NIMBYs, no.
it kind of sounds like you are.
No, that's why you did a LeafSpring.
So,
That's why
Hold
you
on,
did a day here.
ma'am. Thank you.
Everybody who you've heard come up here has said some version of, we're okay with the use. We just don't want anything to happen on this property. This property should not be developed under any circumstances.
Yes, they know. They already knew. It's not gonna make or break.
Thank you, ma'am. Go ahead, sir.
So the standard is compliance with the comprehensive plan, not some unattainable standard that's being espoused by the other folks in the room. Somebody talked about tree canopy and how the tree canopy would not fill in for decades. Yes, old trees once were young trees. Tree canopy calculations, however, are based on 5 years of growth. So you plant the tree, you get credit as if the tree were 5 years old, not 30 or 40 years old. With regard to the sidewalk on Old Whips Mill, we are providing a sidewalk along Whips Mill. Along Old Whips Mill, the developer is paying a fee. So that fee goes to build sidewalks elsewhere in the area where they're more needed and appropriate. The last thing I'll mention is this. I've heard a few different people talking about, well, U of L is doing this for the money, or the developer is here for profit. I don't think U of L is doing it for the money because that's not really the university's mission.
Thank you, folks. We let you speak, so.
And yes, people in the United States, when they make a decision whether or not to invest in a given property, whether or not they are going to spend their money, they are expecting that to be a successful venture. And so, yes, there will be money made from this proposal, just like there was money made from the construction of your home, from any other business or any really operation. And all of us go to work and we expect to be paid for that work. And so, yes, that is one of the things that's considered here. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. The last person who got up and spoke about water pressure, I looked at the development plan. There are water lines on both sides of this property. One is a 12-inch line and one is a 24-inch line. I do not think that this is going to have any impact. Obviously, there's plenty of infrastructure for water in the area. And I think that the fact of 2 water lines that greatly exceed the normal requirement in a residential neighborhood would indicate that this is not going to create any water pressure problem. Again, I heard a lot of concern tonight. Totally legitimate. I totally understand it. I didn't hear a lot of evidence. People said flooding is going to be an issue. We presented evidence about how MSD has asked us to react to the existing conditions and how this proposal had reacted to them. When it came to traffic, people called this curve on Whips Mill a blind curve. It's just not a blind curve. We have the numbers that demonstrate that it's not. So I understand people have different experiences when they drive around. You know, I always notice whenever I'm in a hurry, everybody else is moving too slowly. Whenever I have plenty of time, everybody else is racing around me. But that's why we look at numbers. That's why we measure distances. That's why we use actual objective evidence. So I would ask that you remind yourself when you're making your decision next week and next month, what is really objectively measurable and true, and what is in the record in the form of evidence. I think if you look at that and you look at the comprehensive plan, you will agree with the Planning Commission. You will support the rezoning of the property. Thank you all.
Thank you, Cliff. Mr. Porter, sir.
I really hadn't expected to do any rebuttal, but I also just want to point out that I didn't object, or we didn't object to any statements made by anybody from the applicant side about the history and everything that was new evidence. That's fine. I think you all should hear everything everybody has to say. And I don't have a problem with that. There is plenty of evidence on the record about the blind curve problem. Karen Mohammadi is not just some neighbor who doesn't like a lot of traffic. Karen Mohammadi has been a traffic engineer for 33 years. She's taught it at the University of Louisville. And she looked at this and just was appalled, really, that somebody would want to put something at this location with that curve and with Old Whips Mill coming in just a few feet away from where this entrance is going to be, and that combination of people trying to turn left and turn left out of this or turn left into the property, she said it's going to cause accidents and it's going to cause problems and a level of service that comes down to E. And E level of service is something that is not acceptable in the range of A through E. So there's evidence in the record and things that you've heard tonight repeating that and supporting that to turn this down. It should not be developed at that particular location. You know, somebody's talking about a typical application is somebody who owns a piece of property or has an option to buy a piece of property, and they've really invested in that property. This application is from the University of Louisville. It's not from LeafSpring. LeafSpring doesn't lose a dime by going somewhere else, except maybe for their own planning expenses, but they can take that and go to another location and put it like they're putting in one on O'Bannon Springs Way out in the East Point Business Center, where they said that they wouldn't want to be in this business center, the Shelbyhurst, but they do want to be out in the East Point Business Center. So, you know, this is just not the location. 100 yards away, put it in Shelbyhurst and it'll be fine. Thank you.
Okay, so what we have is a decision that we have to make. We can't make it tonight. Have to make it at a regular city council meeting. So the first crack at that will be next Monday. And the issue will be for this board to start down the path of either approving the development or the opposite. So next Monday, we'll take it up on the agenda.
Thank you. Thank you.